Marcus was the new kid at school, quiet, reserved, always keeping to himself. He wasn't flashy, didn't wear designer clothes, and never tried to stand out. To the school bullies, that made him an easy mark. They laughed at him, shoved his books to the floor, and made jokes at his expense, thinking he wouldn't fight back. But what they didn't know, what no one at school knew, was that Marcus wasn't just any kid. His father was the one name you didn't speak too loudly in this town. Rumors about the most feared gang in the city had been circulating for years. Everyone knew they controlled the streets, but no one knew just how deep their influence ran. The leader, a man who ruled with an iron grip, someone people crossed at their own risk. And that man was Marcus's father. For weeks, Marcus kept quiet, taking the insults, ignoring the shoves, and pretending not to hear the threats. But one day, the bullies pushed too far. They humiliated him in front of the whole school, laughing as they filmed every second of it. What happened next changed everything. Because when Marcus finally made that one phone call, the game was about to change, and the bullies, they had no idea what was coming. Marcus gripped his phone tightly, his hands shaking, not from fear, but from something deeper. He had spent years trying to separate himself from his father's world, trying to be just another kid. But in this moment, as laughter echoed around him, as the bullies high-fived and replayed the video of his humiliation, something inside him snapped. He walked away without a word, his face unreadable. The bullies took his silence as defeat, but they couldn't have been more wrong. Because Marcus wasn't the type to run for help. He had spent his whole life avoiding the shadow of his father's name, but now, for the first time, he wasn't sure if he could anymore. That night, he sat in his room, staring at the number on his screen. He hadn't called it in years, hadn't wanted to. But his father had always told him, "Asterisk, if you ever need me, truly need me, you'll know what to do, asterisk." Marcus took a deep breath and pressed call. On the other end, there was silence, then a deep voice. "Asterisk, I was wondering when you'd call me, son asterisk." The next morning at school, something felt different. The air was heavier, the hallways quieter, and the bullies. They had no idea their whole world was about to shift. Marcus walked into school the next morning like nothing had changed. He kept his head down, his expression calm, but inside, he felt different. He wasn't afraid anymore. The bullies were already in the cafeteria, laughing loudly, probably rewatching the video they had filmed of him. They didn't notice the way people were whispering, the way students kept glancing at Marcus, as if sensing something had shifted. It wasn't obvious yet, but it was coming. At lunch, Marcus sat alone, as he always did, but this time he wasn't ignored. A few students shot him nervous glances, some even moving to different tables. He didn't understand why, until his phone buzzed. Asterisk checked the parking lot asterisk. Marcus looked up. Through the cafeteria windows, he saw them. A few blacked-out SUVs parked near the school entrance, their engines still running. Men stood beside them, silent, watchful. His father didn't need to send a message. The presence alone said enough. The bullies were still laughing until one of them got a phone call. He frowned, checking the number, then walked off to answer. A few minutes later, he came back, his face pale, his hands shaking. Something was happening, and for the first time, the bullies weren't the ones in control. The cafeteria had never been this quiet. The usual noise, students talking, trays clattering, laughter echoing, felt distant, almost muted. Even the teachers seemed uneasy, their eyes darting toward the parking lot, where the black SUVs remained, their engines rumbling like a warning. Marcus didn't move. He didn't have to. He just watched as the bullies started shifting uncomfortably in their seats, stealing nervous glances at each other. They had no idea who had called, but they knew it wasn't good. Then one of them, Jake, the one who had been the loudest yesterday, stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. His face was still pale, his hands still trembling. Without a word, he hurried out of the cafeteria. The others hesitated, unsure whether to follow, but when their phones buzzed one after another, they scrambled to check their screens. Marcus could see it in their eyes. The realization, the fear. One of them, Corey, looked around as if searching for someone to tell him this wasn't real. Then his gaze landed on Marcus. For the first time, there was no smirk, no smug expression, just confusion. As if he was seeing Marcus for the first time, the doors to the cafeteria suddenly swung open. And standing there, just inside the entrance, was a man no one expected to see. The entire cafeteria seemed to freeze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, forks hovered over trays, and every pair of eyes locked onto the man standing at the entrance. He wasn't dressed like the teachers or security guards. He didn't wear a suit or carry a badge. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough. Broad shoulders, sharp eyes that scanned the room like he already knew everything that had happened, and a quiet authority that made the air feel heavier. Marcus's father. The bullies went rigid. Corey's breathing hitched. Jake took an instinctive step back, and the others looked like they wanted to disappear into their seats. But Marcus wasn't looking at them. He was looking at his father. The man who had built a reputation strong enough to keep an entire city in check. The man Marcus had tried so hard to distance himself from. And yet, here he was, standing in his school like he owned the place. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He simply turned his head slightly, and like clockwork, one of the men from outside stepped in, walking past him with slow, deliberate steps. The tension was suffocating. Then out of nowhere, a voice cut through the silence. A voice Marcus never expected to hear. "Marcus, we need to talk." It wasn't one of the bullies. It wasn't his father. It was the principal, and the way she was looking at Marcus made his stomach drop. Marcus felt the weight of every gaze in the room pressing down on him. His father, the bullies, the students, all waiting to see what would happen next. But it was the principal's eyes that unsettled him the most. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared. She looked like someone who had just uncovered a truth she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "Come with me," she said, her voice firm but calm. Marcus swallowed hard, glancing at his father. He hadn't moved, his expression unreadable. The men standing by the door didn't move either. The whole cafeteria felt like a scene frozen in time. Then slowly, Marcus stood up. The bullies stayed silent as he walked past them. No laughter, no smug comments, just the weight of fear hanging over them like a storm cloud. For once, they weren't in control. The walk to the principal's office felt longer than it should have. When they arrived, she closed the door behind them and let out a long breath. "I know who your father is," she said, her voice quieter now. "And I know what he's capable of." Marcus didn't respond. He wasn't sure where this was going. She sat down, studying him for a moment before speaking again. "But what I don't understand is why he's here now." Marcus frowned. Before he could finish, the door swung open again. One of his father's men stepped inside, holding out a phone. "You need to take this," he said, his voice low. "It's urgent." Marcus hesitated, then took the phone. A deep voice came through the line. It wasn't his father. It wasn't anyone he recognized. "Marcus," the voice said, "we need to talk. There's something you don't know." His blood ran cold. Because something about the way they said it told him this wasn't over yet. Marcus held the phone to his ear, his pulse pounding. The voice on the other end paused, as if choosing their words carefully. "There's more to your father's visit than you think," the voice finally said. "This isn't just about you." Marcus's grip tightened around the phone. He glanced at the principal, who watched him closely, and then at the man standing by the door. Something wasn't right. Before he could respond, the office door opened again. His father stepped inside, his expression serious. He looked at the man with the phone and gave him a slight nod. "It's handled," his father said simply. The man hesitated, then took the phone back. Without another word, he walked out, leaving Marcus in the room with his father and the principal. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then his father sighed, shaking his head. "I never wanted you to be part of this life," he said, "but I won't let anyone lay a hand on you." Marcus exhaled, the weight on his chest finally easing. The message had been sent. The bullies wouldn't bother him again. But as he looked at his father, he realized something. No matter how much he tried to outrun his past, it would always be a part of him.